So I'm pretty vocal about using an M1 Mac pretty much since launch. And for a lot of uses, it's been amazing and awesome. But the more I use it as my only computer, the more I realize there's still a lot of stuff that it either doesn't do right now or just doesn't do at all. So Intel reached out to see if we wanted to talk about their new Evo platform. It gave us no guidelines on things we could say or not say, just to check it out. And there's been kind of a narrative since Apple announced their own silicon that like Intel's out of the race, that what they're doing doesn't matter anymore. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. With the Evo platform, you're getting just a ton of stuff that you just can't get from the Mac. So when you go to buy a laptop, really any laptop, not necessarily even an Intel one, sometimes hard to figure out like which computer's got what and are you getting the best of whatever you're looking for. So what the Evo branding is, essentially took the most important specs and told any manufacturer who wanted to make an Intel-based laptop that if you want to have the Evo branding, it's got to meet these minimum requirements. And for the most part, they're all generally stuff you really want, like minimum 9 hours of battery life, using the current Tiger Lake platform, Thunderbolt 4, Wi-Fi 6, and a bunch more. And sort of a way for Intel to say, if it has this sort of sticker on it or this label, you know your performance is going to meet certain criteria. And that's important. And there's a bunch of different computers underneath sort of that Evo brand. So like this has been true for a while, but one of the benefits of really anything on the Intel platform is like variety of form factors. You can pick what you want. Probably my favorite right now is this guy. It's the Asus ZenBook Flip S, and it does the flippy stuff you'd expect. It's a tablet, it's a laptop, put in tent mode. You even get a pen with it, it's touchscreen. It's incredibly thin, but it does something I hadn't ever seen before. So it's got like a normal looking trackpad, right? But if you hit this little button in the upper right-hand corner, it turns the trackpad into a full number pad, which is really nice to have, something you don't generally get on a laptop because, you know, they're small. But it's little things that have made this a really nice experience. It's a great combination of ports, portability, functionality, while also, you know, looking really good. But like keeping true with like the variety theme, if you want like a more traditional laptop, maybe with a more like durable build, more industrial design, while also looking, I think like stupid good. The Razorbook 13 is like a work of art. I was really impressed with how this thing felt. And you've got all the stuff you'd expect. The Thunderbolt 4, you even have a full-size HDMI port in there. You've got a USB-A port. There's a lot of I/O for whatever you need. You've got Chroma on the keyboard. I mean, almost bezel-less design. It's just a gorgeous computer that looks and performs how you'd expect. And like, these are just two options. Now, granted, they're like two of my favorite, but there might be others that you want to look at. These are just a real small sampling of a ton of options you've got sort of under the Intel Evo line. So you can find the right one for whatever it is you want to do. All that stuff is great, but I think the biggest reason anybody would want to get a computer with Evo branding is performance. You're getting the speed that you need, but also you get access to like a huge amount of accessory options, sort of make your rig, whether mobile or desktop, sort of perfectly suit you. I mean, so built in with anything with the Evo, it's gonna be the 11th gen core processor, and that's Tiger Lake if you keep track of the names. It's gonna give you a bunch of performance improvements. It's 2.7 times faster for things like content creation, 20% faster for productivity, and 2 times faster for gaming. And those are things that really matter. And I think probably the best way to sort of take the portability of a laptop, but also get the power of a desktop, especially when it comes to gaming or video editing, is with an eGPU. There used to be something that you could kind of do on Macs, but only had to be AMD chips. With the M1 though, that's no longer an option at all. But with an Intel Evo computer, you can really plug in almost any GPU you want as long as you've got the right enclosure. So here, for example, we've got the Razer Core X with an RTX 2080 plugged right into the Razorbook 13. So now this thing is a beast of a setup, right? I've got the portability of a really small laptop with like desktop class performance, which is awesome, but you can still do a lot more. So part of the Evo platform is Thunderbolt 4. With Thunderbolt 4, obviously, you can plug in a dock and you could just add like ports aplenty for whatever your setup calls for. So we're using a dock from CalDigit. Like I said, you get a bunch of ports, which is awesome. But the biggest benefit is being able to run multiple monitors from it, which surprisingly from an M1 Mac, doesn't natively support multiple external monitors. So like with that, you can see this like desktop style environment with the little laptop as a hub is growing, and it could expand for whatever it is that I want to do at that time. For data, we use Samsung T7 drives. These are just sort of an example. They're really small portable drives that have a fingerprint reader on them. They're awesome. We record on them, we edit off them. They're sort of our hub for getting all of our work done. And I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but they do not work on M1 Macs, which is a problem. But they do work, obviously flawlessly, with an Intel Evo based machine. And like, it's kind of weird that like external hard drives that are formatted for Mac OS still won't work on the computer. And that's kind of been the theme that I found since I've been using the M1 computer. For a lot of things, it's been really good, especially for battery life. It's been a really welcome surprise. But using it as my only computer, I've kind of been confronted with having to find constant workarounds for things that are just not yet supported, whereas I don't have to search for ways to make things work with an Evo machine. It just works. So like all the hardware and stuff is important, but I think like software, like what can you actually do with the computer? Well, for us, being able to edit video is a giant deal, and that's awesome. But when you take what the laptops can do and scale them up, so we've plugged in our external GPU, we've got our RTX 2080 in there, we now have got power. So you can do things like, obviously older games. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a personal favorite. It looks awesome, it performs well. But like if you want like a brand new game, despite having, let's say, a checkered launch on console, it does run pretty well on PC, Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, this is a flagship game that can use a ton of horsepower. And I could run this game in really decent settings coming from a really tiny laptop. And that's awesome to have the functionality. I can take this with me, but I can also plug in one cable and be able to really game like I could on pretty much any desktop PC. And that's been really cool to have that functionality. But if you are using it as just a laptop or you don't have an external GPU, anything with the Evo branding is using their new Iris integrated graphics. It's integrated XE is what they're calling it. You get really solid performance from that. People tend to think integrated and think like, but this is really good, and you can use it for a lot of things. You could do light gaming. You could do light video editing here. This is a really solid integrated graphics option. And if you sort of have the perception of integrated being bad, this might change your mind on what you can do. And like beyond all the graphic stuff, the 11th gen processor Tiger Lake has AI, like everything's got AI built in, right? My mug has AI, but it's built into this to sort of optimize processes to make sure whatever you're doing is going to be running smoothly. So I mean, they take anything away from the software section. Like these computers can do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it, and now with like the modular ability, wherever you want to do it. Most laptops are some version of good. What you get with the Evo branding is really good across the board for almost anything you're going to want to do. And there's a peace of mind with that. If anything we talked about, you want to check it out, from accessories, docks, to laptops themselves, link to them all down below. But take this away from the video. Somebody who's been using an M1 Mac for a lot of uses, they are really good. But if you step outside of those use cases, you start to realize the current limitations of the hardware. And if you need to do your work outside of those limitations, it can become extremely difficult and frustrating. And with something from Intel and with Evo branding on it, those limitations are removed. And you get a computer that will suit itself for you instead of you having to change yourself and your work for the computer.